Okay, so today we are going to be talking to two advocates. One is a gentleman most of you know really well, JM, and I'll have him introduce himself in a moment. And the other gentleman is Robert and Robert Ritzman. And so before we get into any further information, I'm Billy with Toll and Roll. And Toll and Roll is the advocacy group that is working in all 50 states of by and for the people. We're working hard to have the people's voices heard and to go back to our republic form of government. Big statement, but we're trying. So, before we get started with you, Robert, what we'd like you to do is give me your professional background and what life experiences led you into this work and level of this understanding. You don't need to go into what it is you know, but give us a little bit about you.
Well, my profession is I'm a commercial contractor, worked all across the United States, have territories to the union, international agreements with the union. So I'm well versed in contracts and contract law.
Okay.
But
And what point in all of this over the last few years, and tell me how many years you've been working with people like JM and sharing your knowledge, and what kind of knowledge I'm talking about is your financial crimes knowledge, your IRS knowledge, that type of thing as well. Can you give us a little more about that?
I mainly focus on people with criminal charges. But when it comes to child support, child custody, the contracts, some of the contract issues with foreclosures, I really, kind of put a wall between me and the IRS stuff. I always recommend people get an agent to do that. But mainly contract issues with the court.
Okay. Tell a little bit more then. Let's go ahead and let you explain what it is you actually do. Maybe a little bit about your knowledge, a little bit more about you and what you're doing.
Well, when it comes to, I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest, and the state I'm in, most of the states up here are medical cannabis states. So when it comes to, they legalized, that's what they've done is they legalized medical cannabis in the late 90s, but they still enforce it like it's more, they still enforce it as a Schedule I substance. So when people wind up sideways when they're getting charges, stop it. Anyway, when they're getting charges, I step in and show them the path to remove the liability.
Wonderful. Now, when you say you show them the path to remove the liability, in what capacity are you doing that, and how long have you been doing this?
Well, the courts have identified me as a interpreter. Okay, so that's what they identify me in their society. I usually go when I'm working with the courts. There's two types of laws. We have the original laws, original jurisdiction. That's what I stand on, and then you have the administrative laws of the state, and that's what I remove. That's where the commercial crime is the administrative law. So I always have to get into people's documents and find out where I can tie everything and get them back to original jurisdiction. And as far as how long I've been doing this, myself, they charged me back in 2015, and in retaliation, I started hammering the local courts and counties and shutting them. I've been shutting them down ever since then, but I have to be invited into another, and people have to invite me into a case in order for me to go after cities, counties, the state.
Correct. Okay, so what would you say has been some of the biggest walls you have faced, you professionally or for other people, that that have caused you to maybe not be as safe as you could be, or maybe have to take precautions that you wouldn't have thought you would have to take?
Well, 25 years ago, I disbarred some attorneys using the courts. Most people don't realize that one of the things that most people don't understand is every contract must have the authority to back up the contract, and they use the court for that. Okay, then with the orders, the administrator judges can order police, deputies, FBI, U.S. Marshals into correcting a breached contract. So when I went after some attorneys, and when I went to the Bar Association, they have their own court for those contracts with the attorneys. So I used their courts and went through a very lengthy, I think it's 5 or 6 years, but I basically proved that these attorneys breached the contract, and they got sanctioned for it. Then what happened immediately after that, they blacklisted me, which what that means is blackballing and blacklisting. And they blacklisted me, and what that means is they delist you from commerce. So they were hacking into my phone, my internet, contacting clients, and telling them not to pay me. So I basically I left this state and went and registered, relicensed in another state, an adjoining state, and they went across state lines, and they started doing that across state lines. So I basically had to notify the FBI of this interstate commerce issue. From there, it just escalated from one thing to another. I didn't back down. It just got entangled into a bigger and bigger and bigger fight. And then in 2015, they saw an opportunity. They tried to put me in prison for 30 years. So they tried, but they lost.
You know, that's something, Robert, we hear a lot about. And this is why I asked JM to bring you to the table to talk and speak about this, is because a lot of people don't know the people behind the scenes that have been implemental in helping our toll and roll team or members or other whistleblowers. And you actually have helped quite a few people. JM, before I continue with Robert, can you go ahead, introduce yourself, and then we'll get back to you for the last few minutes of this interview to discuss what happened to you yesterday. But I'd like you to just lay a little foundation of how Robert came to this conversation, because over the years you have spoken of him to me and things he has helped you with. So give us a little bit of that foundation of how this came to be.
Well, my background is in computer science by career choice. Started several companies, did quite well, much like Robert. And like you, back in the early days, 2009, 11, with the HAMP program is what got me started down this road. And the fact that they were cheating left, right, and center, and then making you do things, said, okay, this is no good. And that graduated, obviously, into observing the corruption in the courts. The fact is very simple. The state courts do not follow federal law at all. I've been in 6 cases now, and they do not follow federal law at all. They do not support the Constitution of the United States. They do not support federal jurisdiction at all. And they presume to do whatever they want under statutory codes. And I suggest anyone wanting to get anything settled to go to a federal court, stay out of the state.
Well, do me a favor. Let's back up to Robert and how you brought Robert into this, because this is what I'm trying to do here.
Well, I met Robert. Mm-hmm. I understand. When I met Robert, I met him through a Walter Check, who was a retired legal researcher of 50 years. And Walter introduced me to Robert, and Robert had been speaking back and forth over several years now. And he's pointed me in a great deal of directions in terms of what is real law, what is not law, what is the components that people don't think about. They don't think about the post office. They don't think about the signage on the streets where they are. It's like we're taught 2 languages. We're taught to read and to write, but we don't understand that there's it's forms of communication, if you will. There are at least 4 forms of communication. We're only taught 2.
Well,
Here's
then
what
let's
you
stop
need
here.
to
Let's stop
do.
here because this is not a lesson. This is not an
No,
interview
no,
for lesson.
it's an explanation. It's not a lesson. We're only taught two forms. We should be taught four at the
Hmm.
very minimum because we walk into contracts and we don't even know it.
And this is where Robert comes in. And this is
Yeah.
what's, Robert, why I'm very happy to have you on today. And, I know somebody listening is going to say, well, how do I reach him if I want his help? How would people reach you if they want your help?
Probably text me.
Okay, so what may I allow them in the comment section to reach out and then I can get them connected to you? Is that okay to do that way, or do you have something publicly that you want to give them?
I I don't operate in the public at all.
Hmm.
I stay out of the public. I don't do. There are some videos of me on YouTube that I didn't put on there. I did some speaking events that somebody recorded them and then published them on YouTube, but that wasn't
That's okay.
my
Then what
doing.
I'll do is in the chat, if anybody listening would like to be connected, put a note in the chat and I will reach out to you privately and connect the two of you if I can, or through JM. So we keep that private. So, Robert, what I'd like you to finish before I go back to JM is knowing what all of this has cost you, not just financially, but in having to defend yourself. You've refused to back down, is exactly what you've said. So do you want people to understand what is it about the price of telling the truth, and how has that affected you, the price of telling the truth?
Well, the thing is okay. We're taught we have the freedom of speech. We're taught that there's accountability to what we think is government. Well, that's a falsehood. When you speak up of problems, things that an injustice that your government is doing to you, then you become a target. And the first thing they do is they interrupt your job, which interrupts your marriage. Your neighbors all of a sudden turn on you because a lot of them are they believe that you have to do what you're told, and it's done all the time, and people don't realize how a few people affect the masses, and it makes people afraid. I grew up my father was military, so I grew up I was born in Europe. I spent the first 7 or 8 years in Europe, and then he got transferred to Asia during the Vietnam War, and I spent another 7, 8 years in Asia before I ever got to the United States. So I never got to see America when I was growing up until I was already a teenager. So I didn't get the indoctrination that most Americans got. I see things a little differently. So
Well,
that's the biggest thing that I can say is I wasn't indoctrinated into the lie.
and thank God, because you have helped. I know JM has just spoken of you so often, and we've had many conversations about your information, and I look forward to having future conversations with you aside from this. But today's main goal was to introduce you as an advocate behind the scenes, because we're asked many times, well, who are you people? What are you doing? Well, we are you. We are the people. We are not just our faces of the toll and roll delegates, but we are also JM and Robert and people behind JM, people behind Robert. This is how the people come together, is help each other. So with that said, we've had a very tough week in JM's life, which was not unexpected. But
No.
JM, yeah, not at all. But I would like you to keep this as brief an explanation as possible, because this is something that's happened to JM, happened to me, happened to many people who have lost everything by way of taking, without authority or without jurisdiction, our homes, our lands, our children, even our parents, into medical kidnapping. So, JM, explain very briefly, if you can, because we're almost done here, what happened to you this week, and give us a quick idea of maybe where you're going forward with this.
All right. April 2nd, I was I was in court for a traffic ticket, and I was arrested outside the courtroom for literally standing by my car. And they kept me all day in restraints. And then I was told towards the end of the day that I had been evicted from my home. There was no warrant. There were no warnings as required by New York state law and federal law. And I was thrown out in the middle of the street at 11 o'clock at night in freezing weather with no ride. I had to walk 5 miles to go to a hotel to stay because there was no way home. It was 50 miles from home at that point. And found out after about a day of panic, or maybe an hour of panic. I said, okay, let's figure this out. And we turned around and found out that there was no warrant whatsoever. The judge never signed it. The court never issued a warrant. It turned out to be a real estate guy across the street from me that preys on people who are in court or losing court, and they do what's called a land grab. And he sets himself up as the representative of a bank or the bank, and then tells us he writes up this paperwork and sends it to the sheriff. The sheriff either I cannot prove in collusion, so I won't go there. But I'm assuming that there was a very incompetent deputy there who accepted this idiotic paperwork because it really made no sense and executed on it. So we come to find that it was collusion, whether on purpose or not. And I was thrown out of the house with all of my belongings, everything. They left me in the street with a pair of shoes, socks, shirt, underwear, and pants. That's it. Cut off from all. I still do not have. This is April 12th. It's 10 days now. I still do not have access to the things they took from my house. So we're supposed to go get it tomorrow. I'm going to. The good news on that side of the equation is that now knowing that they had no eviction notice, basically created a huge problem for the Delaware County Sheriff's Office as well as Delaware County itself. So without authority, they all have no judicial immunity. They all trespassed on private property, stole private property. So 10 of them will face jail time. There's nothing that can be done about that. And I moved back into the house this afternoon.
Good. Very good. Well, and those listening, this is a very short version of a very long, many years journey for JM. JM and I have known each other, well, long time.
Yeah.
Long time, over a decade, going on a decade and a half,
Much
I
more.
think.
Right.
Yeah, a lot more. And with the mutual respect that the three of us on this call have, it's a respect for the people that we want to make sure you're not alone in these stories. You're not an anomaly. The problem we have is a system that is not one set up for us, the people, especially those who are not knowledgeable. As like Robert very eloquently said, there's structure of which if you don't know what it is, you're blindsided. And even when you do, like JM, you get blindsided. Why? Because the courts aren't courts of law.
I
And
have to
so,
interrupt you
go ahead.
on this moment. You have to understand that the federal law supersedes all state law. Most Americans do not understand that. And the biggest criteria in federal law is that the people who are executing any authority must have an oath of office recorded at their whatever location. And that supersedes any state regulation or statute or whatever you wish. You will find that at least I have found in 38 states that we searched on judges, most of them have no oath of office. Most police officers have no oath of office. Most clerks have no oath of office. So you're dealing with essentially a bar mafia, if you will, that has infiltrated the government. So the only solution you have is to go to federal court and bring them all in because they have no judicial immunity. They have no immunity at all without that oath of office. They have nothing. So it's very
So
important that people also learn.
Where would you suggest those listening who say, gosh, I need to know more about this? Besides, I'll help with getting to Robert as people request. I know you are completely inundated yourself, but Do you have a suggestion as to where people can go for learning if they choose to learn anything further before we close?
Well, the biggest problem that the American, and after 15, 20 years of this nonsense, and with you and with everybody else, the biggest problem with everyone is they're lazy. They don't know what the US Constitution is. They don't read it. It's a 10-minute read. They don't understand it. It's the reason they're alive and they still don't read it. They don't understand it. They don't practice it. They don't back it. They don't support it. That little booklet, those 4 pages, control their lives. And none of them even want to read it, which I find completely idiotic.
Well, you know,
Uh,
Jay, the first interview I did for Toll and Roll for this advocacy series was with Tiffany Wise. She's 35 years in helping CPS. And, you know, that was her key point as well. And I was hoping, thank you very much. That was what I was hoping to hear from you, because Tiffany was very strong, like you, as people don't read the Constitution.
yeah,
And they,
the supremacy clause itself tells you who you are. And if you don't understand it, then there's no paperwork in the world that's going to help you. Nothing. If you do not know who you are, nothing will help you. Don't waste your time. Give them the keys and go home. And don't bother.
and you know,
It's that simple.
we have we had limited time today, because this is definitely all I wanted to do today for advocacy, was share two men that are behind Toll and Roll. Robert probably had no idea that he was behind
Well,
anything we've done, but JM, you definitely are. You and I have worked side by side on.
oh no, he's my backup to your backup, so that's fine.
So, anyways, Robert, would you like to say anything in closing about advocacy, about people helping each other, before I finish?
Well, people are listening to this. I just want to impress on them to understand the definition of communism. When the state controls your church, your work, and your communication with your phone, your internet, that's communism. And right now, when the state attorneys, the agent for the state corporation, when they can blacklist you, they control your speech, and they can take away your children, take away your property, with no law, standing of law to do it. This is communism at its finest, and this is where we're at here in America. And Americans that I see don't recognize that.
No, they don't.
So,
go ahead, JM. Finish that thought.
No, as Robert pointed out very clearly, the concept that's going around right now, the flock cameras, for example, they're trying to make them everywhere. That, by definition, violates the Fourth Amendment. I mean, it's blatant. It's not negotiable. It's not. The language is simple. You're not allowed to surveil American citizens. It's that simple. But they're doing it.
And you know what we have tied in with the software systems and the patents that have been handed over, in all the whistleblower testimony that we've given, of which you're part of. Back in the day, in the 70s, Inslaw and Promise were, I may be saying it wrong, I always say Promise, Poromis, is why the reporter Danny got murdered. It was the octopus that the CIA, that they had put in place to surveil. And that was back in the 70s. So when we start talking about our whistleblowers and people behind the scenes in Toll and Roll, we are all about, foundationally, counterfeit, forged, and perjured documents. And
yes,
the point, go ahead.
Just to elaborate on your point, as a computer engineer for 40 years, programmers, AI, I mean, I've done all this nonsense, security systems. The single most dangerous company to every living being on this planet is Palantir. Flat out. It is the single most dangerous. If you've ever watched the Terminator movie, Palantir is the computer system. They watch everything, your bank accounts, your food, wherever you go, facial recognition, everything you do. When a police officer arrests you, He knows how much money you've got in your bank account. So he knows if he can take you or not take you. This
And
is the
riddle me
classic.
this. We know there's a lot of stockholders in the company and a lot of board members. Do you have any comments you want to make? Because I have many I have made about the people I'm finding out behind this company, who a lot of people in the
Well,
Patriot
they're out of
community,
Israel. It's not
pardon?
complicated. They're out of it. They're based out of Israel in Jerusalem in Israel.
Thank you.
Peter Thiel.
Thank you.
He is that basically he. It's not an American company. It has an American company arm, but the headquarters are in Israel in Jerusalem.
And that was Peter Thiel, you said, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Now, a question is it true that General Flynn has a lot of stock in the company or is part of the board? I
I
heard
I
that
wouldn't
recently.
I wouldn't know that, but what is clear, as Robert pointed out and you pointed out, and we've discovered that the technologies are not going to be beneficial to the United States or to the rest of the world. It'll be beneficial to 1% or two. I don't think they'll be successful with it because there are counter technologies available, which make their technology useless. But they're not on the market yet. But quite honestly, as 50 years of doing this nonsense, that's the most dangerous company on the planet. It makes Microsoft look like a child, who's also a dangerous company, but Palantir is far worse, far, far worse. You have no
And we
privacy. Everything you do is recorded, unregistered, run through an AI. They will tell you, they will know 99% of the time what your decision will be given a set of circumstances before you know.
well, and
This is,
this is all part of toll and roll, and it's a part
yeah.
that maybe you and I will have another
Now we'll talk
advocate.
more about it. I'll have
Yeah,
more information for you.
yeah, then more information. And Robert, I want to thank you for coming forward today with your voice. Thank you for and your dog. We love to hear the family in the background too,
That
because
is a
there's more
lot.
there's more to us than just our faces and places that we are. I am going to say, anyone listening, go to www.tollandroll.com. We also have a Facebook page, everything on tollandroll.com. You can reach us through that. If you reach out and want to have Robert or a conversation with JM, you just let us know. Our email at Toll and Roll is tollandroll2025@gmail.com. We will put that in the notes for you on this video once it's done. So I appreciate you two gentlemen so much. And Robert, you and I have not had a chance to speak like this in a very, very long time. And I don't even think you remember the last time JM and I had you and I speak, because it's been years. But thank you. Thank you for everything from Toll and Roll, from us delegates who are the face for the men and women behind the scenes like yourself. So thank you for your time, JM. Thank you. Love you to
Pleasure, my
death.
dear.
You're
Anytime.
always big in my heart. And anyone listening, send up prayers for Tom Kibler. We have our one delegate.
Absolutely.
He's in the hospital. He's in not doing great, but we're pushing him forward to get healthy. So thank you, gentlemen, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Renee. Pleasure. Rob, I'll talk to you later.